Hi everyone. This is day 11 of at-home workouts for social distancing during the COVID-19 crisis. Kevin and I were in Chiang Mai before, so the previous 10 installments of this were all in the place we were renting up in Chiang Mai. And yesterday there was no at-home workout because we were driving all day from Chiang Mai down to Pattaya. It's like a 10-hour drive. So we're back home. This is my actual place that I live. And I was super stoked to go for a run this morning. So I just go out and run on my own on rural roads, not a lot of people, lots of dogs. But I'm very excited to be running again. Running is really, really important for Muay Thai. Anyone who tells you differently, I disagree with, I guess is just the way to say that. And so I'm just going to be continuing what I did up in Chiang Mai because it was working and it was making me happy, and I'll do stuff down here. I have a pull-up bar in my apartment, which is really good, so I can start getting a little bit more of my hanging that I do for my shoulders, as well as pull-ups and strength coming back a little bit. This is a point, actually, that I'm telling myself, but I'll tell you guys, because this is kind of how this works, is I think something and then I just talk about it because I think that it's something that a lot of us can relate to, is one, something that I've reiterated a bunch of times is that we can get better, we can work on our technique, and we can actually improve, and basically use this as like ninja camp so that when we get back to our gyms, we will have improved our techniques and ourselves. It is not just a like holdover period. I was unable to run almost the entire time I was up in Chiang Mai, and so now that I can run again, I have to be patient with myself. I have to understand that my running did take a hit, and that as I go back into it, I have to acknowledge that it's going to take time in order to get back to feeling the way that I did before I stopped. And that's one of the things that I'm going to have to remember with my hanging and my pull-ups and all of these different things, is that everything that you had in your maintenance mode at your gym was because of how you were training there. And when you're trying to approximate or come up with things to do on your own, the things that are kind of holdover are what we can do at home in terms of strength and things like that, and that might be a bit of a transition when you change your circumstances, or when you change and finally can go back to our gyms. Our strength and stamina might not be exactly what it was before because the training there and the training here is so different. Rules change where all of us are, so as people are experiencing various phases of lockdown, which you are and aren't allowed to do, whether you're allowed to go outside for your exercise or not, all of those things are going to influence what you can do, and so that's going to influence kind of what you're used to being good at and things that you're going to be less amazing at as you make all these adjustments and transitions. But the beautiful thing about all of that is that sport altogether is not about perfection. Sport is about adjustment, and so we are in this time of like repeated adjustment. We're making lots of adjustments. Currently, Kevin is making adjustments to my mouth. He's the tech guy. Okay. So I'm going to start moving around. I'm going to do 500 elbows, 500 knees against my different wall than what I had in Chiang Mai. And I'm going to use some shadow boxing. And then I happen to have a little bit of equipment in my room that not everyone will have, so I'm going to try to keep everything like body. But if you have some things around, like you want to do some like weighted shadow boxing, you've got like tomato soup cans, you can totally use that as like weights as well. So I'm going to get started.
Would you be willing to have the marathon at the arena?
Is it loud?
It's loud.
Okay. Alright. Open windows workout instead. All right.
Then we have to close that curtain.
Okay.
You're in complete darkness. Not complete, because it's darkness.
That.
I'll know in a few seconds.
Okay. Still making adjustments. Lighting, things like that. Is that good? It's not caught up yet? Okay.
It's better.
All right. See if we have questions, see if we have people watching. Hello, hello. Den, come on, was my trainer at Lana Muay Thai many years ago when I had my first 2 years in Thailand up at Lana. Den was one of my first trainers. He's now in Scotland. Thank you for watching my home workout. I've been seeing your home workouts on your page as well. Those are really good. It's really nice actually to open up the windows and like have this breeze coming through. It gives me a feeling of like a little bit of being outside, which is kind of nice. I can feel in this being day 11, I can feel that in my progression from we're starting something new, we're doing at-home workouts, to like this is now the new normal of at-home workouts, that I'm slipping up a little bit in my brain today, distractions of like the things that I was focusing on in the first couple of days versus the things that I'm focusing on now, because in the first couple of days it was fresh and new, and it was like I can take what I was doing when I actually had someone I was training with Karahat. I can take the things I was working on with him and just plug them into him not being here and kind of doing the same things. And it's kind of like how you forget a dream when you've been awake for longer or something like that. Today I can feel I've lost focus in the kind of clarity that I had on the first couple of days when I started. For those of us who are going to be doing this for a really long time, which I think is going to be a lot of us, the awareness that it's kind of getting diluted like that, or that we're kind of, mind wandering kind of situation, me being aware of the fact that I am no longer really picturing what I was doing in those circumstances. I'm no longer really picturing what my sparring with Nan at Petrun would look like. Just reminding yourself to like really cull back the feelings and images that you have when you're actually training with people, instead of just kind of going into autopilot, just what I feel like I was just doing. Just being able to pull it back together. It's not a panic situation. It's not a like, oh my god, I can't remember. It's just a thing where you have to use a little bit more memory effort. And at the beginning it's a little bit easier because everything is easier when you first begin because everything's new and different and you have like a lot of growth or change, and then it kind of like plateaus. That's going to happen many, many, many times as we do this. That's not a mistake and it's not a current state. It's actually a normal part of the up and down of training. It happens when you're actually in your gym as well. You just might be a little bit more distracted by the like variety of what's going on. So that's the thing I just reminded myself of. So that's something I said out loud to remind everyone of. And I'm going to start another set. Charles Smith says we're in our 5th week now. Motivation is dropping. Thanks for doing this. It makes a difference. I feel you. Michelle, I just finished finishing my own gym yesterday. And I eat cupcakes. Totally. Totally. I think that there's a when we make really, really big changes to our schedule in any way, we kind of fool ourselves into thinking that we aren't experiencing the same emotions and feelings that we're experiencing in the change that we would feel in the like much longer drawn out version of our everyday routine. So when you're going to the gym all the time, or you're able to go out and do whatever you want all the time, you have all kinds of feelings about that all the time. You lose motivation, you feel really excited for no reason, you feel like you're making progress, but all of those things are on a really, really long timeline, and they get super flattened out because they're your everyday routine, and so you like forget half of the things that happened in that day and kind of pinpoint one emotion in order to like paint the entire day with that. It's much easier when things change completely for you to have those emotions and feelings kind of brought out and highlighted, and we feel like they're different. They're not actually that different. Like we deal with them all the time in our regular routines. They're just like on a longer timeline. They're a little bit sped up and maybe like accentuated. So on these days that are difficult, when it's really hard to get motivated because it's not social. You're not going to the gym to meet people. It's not something that, oh, coach is going to show me something that they were going to show me last time. I'm going to learn something new. You can totally still learn something new. Go online, go in the Muay Thai Library, anything like that. You can learn something new and then work on it yourself, or teach yourself something new about yourself as you're working on stuff and get super into that. You can actually cultivate motivation, which is something that people don't really think about. They just think it's like an on switch or an off switch, and you either have it or you don't. You don't just like wake up and like hope that you're feeling hungry. You hope food somehow makes it into your mouth today. Like, you know how to feed yourself. So instead of hoping that you're going to be motivated, or like, oh, I'm not motivated today, I don't know what to do about that, learn how to put food in your mouth when you're hungry. Like, learn how to get yourself excited and motivated on days that you're really not feeling it. It's totally a good tool to have, because the older you get and the more changes you get in your life and the less ideal situations things are, you're totally resilient within that, and you can keep working on things, which I think is as important as, you know, being able to block your face when someone's going to be punching you kind of thing. So I would say that's very important. So Charles says he's mostly a grappler in BJJ. Switching up to Muay Thai keeps it fresh. There's definitely something to be said about cross-training. I love Muay Thai. I'm not interested in going into like MMA or whatever this thing is, but I used to take karate classes at WKO under Sifu McGinnis, and karate was weird for me. Like, it had a lot of things about it that just felt strange to me. There were a lot of the kind of etiquette and customs that go into it that you absolutely have to do in the way that you're training it, but because I wasn't like hardcore into it, I kind of struggled to get into some of those elements. But what was really cool about training karate as cross-training was that a lot of the like balance and the way that you get power and things like that are completely the same as Muay Thai, because something that Chmuk Pet said to me in our most recent session for the Muay Thai Library, he's like, any sport you look at, the power comes from the hips, every single one. So if you're doing golf, if you're doing baseball, if you're doing tennis, like everything is coming from the hips. So really looking at other art forms and maybe like how they've explained or the motions that they use in order to illustrate this might be something that really helps you kind of see what you've been working on in your own art with a different lens or under a different angle, which can be really, really helpful. I was thinking to myself just now as I was doing my knees on the wall that when we're in a gym, we're kind of in a river that has pretty good water pressure in it. Like, it's running pretty fast, it's happening whether you're in it or not, kind of thing. Like, if you miss a day of training, there's totally that fear of missing out feeling of like things are happening without you, you miss it, maybe you missed a technique that was taught, other people are getting better faster than you. We're kind of all in this boat together, where nobody is at the gym kind of thing, but people training themselves at home. It's an opportunity for you to work on something that in the flow of the river, with the current of the river that's a gym, you can't necessarily work on because it's like, I just don't have time for it, or I can't focus that closely on it because I'm doing all of these other things. This is super pared down, super simplified, and it is entirely up to you what you're actually working on. So if there's something you've always wanted to correct in the gym, but the flow of the river has just been, the current is a little bit too strong and it just kind of goes by all the time, now is the time to really focus on that. So if you wanted to work on your guard, you don't have to have someone hitting you in the head all the time to do it. Take the pressure entirely out of it and just, in your shadow boxing, completely focus on your guard in a really hardcore way. Or if you're like, at the end of training, I'm talking about myself, I'm going to say you, but I'm actually talking about myself. The end of training, you're tired, you do your conditioning and this kind of thing, and you just kind of want to go home and shower, and so you never stretch because you're like, I'll just do it later, whatever. Become flexible, like work on your stretching now. Anything that you kind of don't work on in the gym because of the like movement of everything, you can really isolate those things and work on those things now and here. I could probably work on stretching. It'd probably be really good for me. I heard David Goggins talk about how hardcore he is about his stretching, and I just like, I can do maybe a version of that, but my aversion to stretching is so strong that maybe that's something that I should really be focusing on in this time period when I'm not in the rush of everything that's going on in the gym on any given day in my normal life. Stan Potts is here, I know you. Chai is watching again. He is awesome. Sorry, Maria is asking me a question that I have to expand. More about what you do with your foot when you kick on the kicking leg. It might be, I was watching the video of my shadow boxing, my kicking foot just looks all over the place and I don't get what's going on with it. Do you tense it and point your toes or let it flop around? This is a good question. So, don't think too much about what the kicking leg is doing. The kicking leg isn't really doing anything. All your power, all your balance, all of your form is actually in your standing leg. So you should have your attention on your standing leg, and maybe one of the reasons that your kicking leg is doing so many different things is good. It's because you're focusing on your standing leg, and that's great. There are different things that your kicking leg can be doing. One of them, Samart, if you want to go watch the Samart Payakarun session in the Muay Thai Library, he's awesome, and he was the very first person to ever introduce this tension in the standing leg, I mean in the kicking leg, which I'd never seen before. So when Samart kicks, he comes up kind of more or less relaxed like this, but once he actually hits the target, he goes bong, like he flexes the leg straight on impact. So like as you're hitting the target, it goes bong like that. It reminded me of like a quiver of an arrow when it hits the tree, how it kind of has like a reverberation. It has this like bong thing on the end of it. So that's the way I associate Samart's leg tensing as it's hitting its target. Other people will keep the leg very relaxed the entire way through. It's just like a whip that just kind of thuds all the way through. And then some people will keep it a little bit bent. I can't imagine a kick in which the foot would be flexed. Like the kick would definitely have the toe either pointed on purpose, like how I just said Samart would flex his foot and so his toe is pointed. But I don't think you have to necessarily tense the foot to point it. It could be relaxed, but you wouldn't flex like this on a kick. So try different stuff. Like, you know to pay attention to your standing leg, so start paying attention to what your kicking leg is doing. You seem to know that it's doing a couple of different things. when it's doing those different things, which is the kick that feels good, which is the kick that you feel like you have more control over, and then kind of try to refine that one because that's more in the nature of what you're hoping for. Like, if something feels good to you, that's your style, that's your technique, so then hone it. Like, just because something feels good doesn't mean that it's in its advanced stage yet. You can still work on it, but the feeling that you have for it is really the best indicator that that's the direction you want to be headed in, if that's a way to say it. Okay. Where am I? Okay. Another point about the kicking leg that I just thought about is that rather than thinking about what your kicking leg is doing, think about the trajectory that you really want on it. So the golden kick kind of comes up the side of the body and then kind of comes in this way. There are some that kind of just, from here, it's like you're getting on a horse. Basically, it's just this wide leg coming this way. If you watch Sylvie in the Muay Thai Library, Sylvie was the kicker of the golden age. He kicks like crazy, and he actually, his kick, the way that it comes like this, it's like he's like getting off of a bicycle, kind of. His kick and his knee look exactly the same. It's just distance. So if you have a knee that you really like you have a powerful knee, try kicking with the same trajectory, just with a longer leg, and see if that feels good. It was the first time I'd ever seen something like that. His kick is very strange. So, I mean, his knee is very strange. His kick is very fast. So in the Muay Thai Library, Sylvie from Jockey Gym was a very cool, like, this is how you kick endlessly, and then he threw a knee in, and as a knee fighter, taking the kicking technique and then drawing it into a technique that I'm very interested in, it was like, oh, hey, look, here's a different way of kneeing. So if you have techniques that you'd like to apply to your kicking, maybe that's an angle to look at too in terms of like what your kicking leg is doing. something that I just thought of, because this floor is different from the floor that I had up in Chiang Mai, is that, like I was talking about, if there's something you've always wanted to work on, but you kind of didn't have time, or there were too many other things going on in the gym, and so you never kind of got around to it, I have tile floors here, which I had a wood floor in Chiang Mai. Tile floors have lines, and it's actually super convenient when your floor has lines. So if you guys have those, something you can work on at home that you might not be doing at the gym is if you just create like a cross out of the lines on your floor, you can use that to practice your pivoting, which is something that you probably are not spending a lot of time at the gym focusing on, but is a really good thing as a basic to focus on. So if you create a cross and you just want to step across here and like see where your pivoting goes, like this kind of thing, really, really good. You can also use it to see whether you like bring your feet too close together. So just looking at the distancing in the lines on the floor, I can pay attention to if my stance gets too bladed. I shouldn't be between these two lines, but I want to kind of stay between these two as I'm doing all my various things and how I like float back off of things. It's like putting myself in a corral. I don't know. You can use the stuff that's like in your surrounding to your benefit. I don't have any like equipment here, but I have tons of equipment here. I have a wall. I've got lines in the floor. It's like I've got a home gym. Anyway, you can totally find things to play with. I made a video when I first got to Chiang Mai that was a Sylvie's Tips. You can go look it up on YouTube, and as a patron you can watch the longer version of it. But it's basically some ideas of how you can work on your technique at home. And it involves like the knees on the wall, kicking the wall. But Master K, my first trainer, who is still in New Jersey, he's a Thai man who moved to America basically when I was born and has been training people out of his basement. He talked about when he was a kid, he would just like punch the flowers in the trees like as his target practice. If you've got anything in your yard and you can go out into your yard and you've got like some leaves hanging or like a piece of string that you can hang from like your door jamb or something, you can create a target out of anything, and it just teaches like kind of hand-eye coordination and being able to like keep your eyes up. I tend to stare at the floor when I'm doing anything because I'm painfully shy. I started working really hard on eye contact, which was super, super hard for me. There are not people for me to be making eye contact with in order to maintain this thing that was incredibly hard for me to start doing, but then I got a lot of progress and saw a lot of changes just out of this small thing. But I can still make eye contact without anyone there who I'm actually looking at by where I'm focusing my eyes. So if I were to like hang a string from the ceiling and like keep my eye on the string regardless, like it's not even my target in terms of what I'm hitting, but I'm going to keep looking at the string, that's kind of like an eye contact kind of thing. I've got this thing that I love. This is my pig plushie. I can stare at this thing. Like I can totally use this for my targeting and eye contact. It's a stand-in, but it's still kind of cool. So you can, when you're working on something, you're mostly in your mental gym. So what you're literally in doesn't matter that much, including when you're at a gym that has all the equipment and all the fancy things and you've got the battle ropes and all that stuff. You've got all the things, you've got all the rungs on the monkey bar, that's great, but it's your brain, it's how you use it and mentally how you're focused on each given thing that you're actually doing that determines whether that's really useful or not. Diesel Noi is a tall fighter, and people are always like, he had this advantage because he was so much taller than everybody, but in reality, very tall fighters have difficulties in that if you don't know how to fight tall, you're not actually really that tall in terms of your skill and your advantages. And two, they have balance issues because of how tall they are. Diesel Noi said in an interview that we did with him when we were watching the fight he had with Samart Payakarun, he was like, if being tall was such a given advantage that like, oh, being tall you can beat anybody, how come there aren't more Yod Moi that were tall? It's like, not that many. So it's the same thing where anything is really an advantage because you know how to use it or because you've trained it. You don't have some kind of like natural advantage that if you don't actually know how to employ it, it really doesn't do a lot for you. It's the same thing if I never train myself how to actually aim and fire a gun. I can kill someone with it, but it's far more useful to be trained in it. So when you're training in the gym, when you're training at home, when you've got no equipment, when you've got lots of equipment, it's really what you're doing with your brain and how you're concentrating and understanding what you're training in those given moments that makes the biggest difference. Recommendations for footwork-centered videos. Chart Chai, for sure. There are some free videos on YouTube of me training with Chart Chai Sasakun. He's teaching me in Western boxing, but he was a very good Muay Thai fighter and then became a world champion in boxing. He knows both very well. He's an incredible instructor, and he works a lot on balance, weight transfer, things like this. So that's all footwork, and he works with me on that. There are some free videos on YouTube, and then he's in the Muay Thai Library as well. So maybe check him out on YouTube first, and if you're into it, go check him out in the Muay Thai Library as a patron. Footwork also, I think that Samart, because of his importance of balance and moving back and forth and being very symmetrical, I think he worked a lot on footwork. Sifu talks a lot about footwork, so Sifu McGinnis is in the Muay Thai Library, and he talks about how important it is to float. He calls it floating, but it's covering distance with single footwork movements rather than having too many steps altogether. Baby, who else? Kevin. Who would you recommend? Yod Kun Pan. I can't believe I didn't think of that. My footwork is Yod Kun Pan. So, the gallop. We call it the gallop. He doesn't call it that. But he's got this incredible, it's a gallop. He covers distance like this. Why it's so incredible is that he looks like a deflated balloon just kind of floating around. But because it's like a little skip-step gallop, and it's wide, he manages to get in front of his opponents with much fewer steps and much less effort than if you were kind of steadily stalking after them with the kind of rhythm that's more typical. He gets in front of his opponents by coming outside of their stance with this gallop, and he's able to corral them in the ring really well. He likes putting people in the corner in what he, and this is his term, calls the killing zone, which is this little goalie box around the corner of the ring. And so I would look there. Those are some good options. So Chart Chai number 1, Samart, Yod Kun Pan, and Sifu are really good footwork people for that. Kem from Kem Muay Thai Gym up in Karat. He's also in the Muay Thai Library. He works quite a bit on pivots and stuff. So I was just doing pivots. Pivots is very important footwork if you're not going to be chasing people around the ring like this. So I would look at Kem's session as well. All right, last set. Here we go. So last time, just 2 days ago, I showed you guys some examples of sit-ups that I've learned from various teachers. Because Den was on when we first started, I'm going to show you the sit-ups that Den showed me when I was one of his fighters at Lana Muay Thai. They're hard, so don't anticipate doing a whole lot of them. For me, I pick a number that I'm going to do ultimately, and then how you get to them doesn't matter that much. So if I decide that I'm going to do 100 of them, I don't care if I end up doing like the first set of 10, and then as I become more sore, I'm doing like sets of 2. Just get to the ultimate number that you're going for. On top of that, because you're kind of doing one twist over and over again, you're gonna like burn yourself out on one side, which is really good because it burns you for the other side as well. But if you alternate between the two back and forth, it's a way to kind of get through it instead of like 50 this side, 50 that side. Do like 5, 5, 10, 10, like up that way. So these are, let me angle this down. These are Den Kamon's sit-ups. So you want to keep your legs off of the ground, both of them. It's basically like a bicycle sit-up. So bicycle sit-ups are like this, right? You're doing the same twisting. You're connecting to your opposite side knee, but you're going to float the opposite leg straight out off the ground. So you're keeping it off the ground the entire time, like this. So you have to control, your abs are engaged the entire time. So you're going to go like this on one side. And then you can alternate. And so for those, you can choose an ultimate number, work your way up to it, or you can do time. So if you want to do some kind of like circuit, and so you're doing like a minute of sit-ups and then a minute of a plank or something like that, just try to do as many as you can in one direction, and then at the 30-second mark, at least try to match that so that you stay symmetrical. But they do get harder as you go. And something that I really like about sit-ups, I really hate sit-ups in general. Something that I really like about them is that once you've reached the point where they're hard, that's when anything you count actually really matters. So if you're doing 100 and it's not really that hard, you should really just do sit-ups until it's hard and then start counting your 100 after that. So says me. And maybe Muhammad Ali said that also. I don't remember. But thank you guys. Home in Pattaya, this is going to be the backdrop that you guys see for the remainder of the quarantine until we can get back to our gyms, so I can get back to my gym. And yeah, I just kind of, when I'm working out, I'm thinking about things, and so I pull them together and I try to give examples or things that I've come to realize in the training that I've been doing over all of these years. And it's really not bad training yourself. And when all this is over and we start traveling the world again, a lot of people were going to be coming to Thailand in March because there were a lot of competitions. Y Crew Day is then. There's like this big thing in Ayutthaya, Naikanam Tom Day. People missed out this March because of circumstances, and they were going to be coming here, so people really want to be coming here in the fall or in winter or next year or whenever we're able to kind of lift and get back to our more routine and exceptional travel things that we can do. My point being, if you're going to come to Thailand and train in a Thai gym, what you're doing right now, training yourself at home and learning how to train yourself, be responsible for yourself, and focus on your own techniques instead of asking someone else, was that right? That is going to make your experience in Thailand so much more valuable and so much better, because in Thailand, in general, if you're not at a gym that is designed for Westerners, if you're at a gym that is designed for Thai fighters, the way they're brought up is a very slow cook method. It is a very slow, you have years to develop. And so the like, I'm going to correct your kick in one day doesn't really happen. So you being able to diagnose yourself, you being able to be responsible for yourself and know that you're going to go do those 200 knees on the bag that your coach just told you to do, or you're able to kind of do the kicks and the things that they're asking you, and you can self-diagnose and you're used to training yourself because nobody's paying attention to you, that's going to make your experience in Thailand so much better and so much more valuable, and you'll get a lot more out of it. So consider this your prep. This is prep time for when we get back to our gyms, regardless of where in the world they are. Take care of yourselves, everybody. Be responsible for yourself. Be responsible for the people that you really love. If you have a lot of time, I know a lot of people are working from home and some people aren't working at all. If you have time and you really want to be focusing on yourself and your technique and things like this, the Muay Thai Library is an amazing thing to be looking at right now. There's more than 90 hours of long-form training instruction in there that you can get ideas from. You can learn to pick up how to learn things by watching them. There's voiceover from me on all of these sessions, so I'm explaining what was being taught. I'm translating what the trainer is saying in Thai, things like that. Additionally, if you have questions or if you find a video that you're way into and you want to talk to someone about it and the guy in the cubicle next door isn't there anymore, we have a Muay Thai forum. So not only can you ask questions on the round table, you can help answer questions for people who might not have the same experiences as you, and you can also just geek out on things, like post a fight that you're really into and you want to discuss with people, some kind of technique that you've been working on and you want to get someone else's insight on it. It's a community. That's the whole point of a forum, and Kevin and I are pretty diligent about paying attention to making everything friendly and clear in there. We have been very, very fortunate in that it is already a very nice community. It is not a huge forum where people are just dropping things that don't make any sense. It's a really nice space, and I go in there and try to answer things myself and also learn things from other people because I do not have the same experiences as everyone else, and we're all teaching each other, which this at-home workout and having the internet is kind of a great example of for all the people who are offering their examples in their at-home workouts. So thank you guys for joining me. I'll be here again tomorrow for day 12 of quarantine. Take it easy.